How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined by our correspondent, Grant Afseth. Does a lot of great work for us over at DallasBasketball.com as well. He is joining us live from American Airlines Center after the Mavs just defeated the Utah Jazz in blowout fashion. It was a 50-point drubbing. It was not close from the very start. The Mavs, they poured it on. Luka had a 29-point triple-double at halftime. So that just kind of tells you how bad this game was. But anyway, after having that historic 30-0 run in the OKC game before this, not being able to pull it off, and then coming back and to have this type of performance following that, it's a good thing that the Mavs were able to kind of build some positive momentum, because now you have a stretch coming up where they play the Portland Trailblazers, they play the Memphis Grizzlies, and you have a chance to really build on it and get consecutive wins for just the third time this season. They started off 4-0. They've only won consecutive games one time since then, back on November 12th. So they'll have a chance to do that for the first time in nearly a month on Friday, and we'll see if they can pull it off. Final stat line for Luka on this one: he had 40 points, had 10 rebounds, and 11 assists. Just a really solid performance from him and from Kyrie too. But Grant, what's some of your biggest takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I think it was just one of those games that you want to see a team with championship aspirations or deep playoff run aspirations really handle a weak, shorthanded team. I thought they tried to send a lot of double teams at Luka, and he just really ripped them apart, like he tends to do. That connection with him and Derek Lively continues to grow. I think they entered the night with the most alley-oop connections in the NBA of any two players, and that not all of them were alley oops, but they connected for a lot of really high quality, shot attempts in the paint. And I felt just, having Kyrie back in the lineup, it looks synergistic. They continue to play with like a free flowing read and react, like a lot of actions. And I think, they look really smooth doing it. And that's what you want to see as you continue to build throughout an 82 game season.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it wasn't just Luka either. I mean, Luka had the historic performance. He ended up passing Larry Bird. He tied Larry Bird for ninth on the triple-double list last game. And then he came back the very next game and passed Larry Bird. So he has sole possession of ninth on the all-time triple-double list. He's only 14 away from catching James Harden, which is kind of incredible given that that run that James Harden went on during his MVP stretch. So really good stuff from him. But just overall, the team in general had a really good game as well. I'm trying to pull up. Give me just a second here. Let me pull up this. My computer is giving me some issues at the moment. Let's see here. Okay, so in this one, like I said, Kyrie Irving, he had a very quiet 26-point game. Only played 27 minutes in this one, but he had 26 points, was a plus 26 on the night, had 4 assists, 3 steals, shot 11 of 16 from the field. So, I mean, overall, he had a really solid performance. The two other starters, Lively and Derrick Jones Jr., they both had 10 and 12 points respectively. Dante Exum, even though he only had 5 points and didn't shoot very good from the field, he was a team high plus 40 on the night. Played really good defense and kind of stabilized the Mavs. Every time it felt like, well, maybe the Jazz will put a run together with some of the main guys out, it felt like Dante Exum was doing something good on either end of the floor. So, good stuff from him too. Tim Hardaway Jr. did his normal thing off the bench, 17 points, only shot 5 of 14, but he still did his thing. Seth Curry continues to have his upswing after a slow start to the season, had 10 points, shot 4 of 7 from the field. So overall, some really good stuff. And one thing specifically I wanted to ask you about is, Omax Prosper getting a lot more run in this one. He got 21 minutes with Grant Williams out. Obviously, Josh Green is going to be out with the elbow thing for a few more weeks. So this is a big opportunity for Omax, to kind of make himself a staple in Jason Kidd's rotation, so to speak. And the offense is still very much a work in progress. We know that. But defensively, he just seems very sound. Like his size, his quickness, even if a guy gets a first step on him, he's quick enough to slide over and get back in front of his guy. He very, very rarely do you ever see Omax get beat off the dribble. So I'm really encouraged by his defensive performance. He was also 2 of 4 from the field and had 6 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in this game. So really solid performance from him. What did you think specifically out of all the stuff we saw tonight, the 21 minutes from Omax Prosper?
Yeah, I think it's everything that you said. I think particularly the defense, that's actually been a very significant point of emphasis. Like at a recent practice, I haven't really seen this often. I mean, obviously they don't show us everything, only a small glimpse. But it was the first time I really saw someone just break out cones and just really work on sliding and really moving laterally. Like he quite literally was working on all that, like the old-fashioned stuff. So seeing that, whether it was the OKC game in that 30-0 run, he was really active, sliding, got some stops on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that game, and then carried it over tonight. And that's exactly what you want to see from a player that was drafted for defensive versatility with his size, and showing some lateral quickness, and just continuing to develop his offensive game, as you said, getting more fluid with things that happen within the flow of the game, read and react stuff, and just being more aggressive and consistent on the 3-point attempts. That definitely would be a good next step for him as he continues to develop. But overall, when you have players that can really fly around the half court with Omax, it was really intriguing to see in the last this 2-game stretch. AJ Lawson didn't really factor in tonight, but in that 30-0 run, not to talk too much about that, it was really impressive to see them kind of get out of double teams and really swarm in the half court with together as 2 versatile wings. That's not something you really tend to see with the quickness factor with Grant Williams, because he's more of a power player. So just seeing that as another look that you can throw out there as a defensive unit, and seeing that carry over, because Jason Kidd in pregame mentioned, they played desperate, but you want to see that again. And then they responded, of course, it's against a weaker Utah Jazz team that's shorthanded, missing Larry Markin and other key players. But, they were able to contain them to under 97 points, even when they kind of pulled the plug on, the majorly important star players for the fourth quarter. Still outscoring and getting stops in that sort of setting and not letting them run up the score was definitely a good thing to see, kind of from a mentality standpoint.
Yeah, it definitely seems like things changed, like a flip was switched with how they played in that last game. I mean, I know everybody was upset that, they weren't able to pull it off, but, it's like we talked about it after that last game. Everybody, it didn't feel like it was a post game for a loss, because everybody was so upbeat about what they were able to accomplish in that second half. And it's good to see it carry over into this one. And, Omax, we've talked about it over the summer. He came on this pod over the summer and we talked to him, and you and I specifically have talked about it too. But, the potential is just, through the roof. Like he has a very high ceiling for what he can be, just because of not only his physical attributes, but because, he has a high basketball IQ. And once he figures out the stuff offensively, I think he's really going to take off. And he's already, he already looks like he's been in an NBA weight room for several years, even though he hasn't. So, I'm ready to see what that next step for Omax is. But another thing I wanted to ask you about from this game specifically, so Josh Green is out. Grant Williams, he was out for this one with a knee issue. So you would think if Jason Kidd wanted to go for size, maybe he would throw Omax Prosper in there, to start, or maybe even AJ Lawson, after the game that he had against OKC. But he pulled a page out of Rick Carlisle's book and went with 3 guards with with Luka, and obviously big guards with Luka and Dante Exum. But you had a 3-headed monster at the guard positions with Luka, Kyrie, and Exum, and then you had Derek Jones Jr. and Derek Lively. And I know it's the Jazz. I know they're not that good. They have a bunch of injuries. They're only 7-14, but small sample size, it worked out really well in this one. So what did you think about Kidd's decision to start Dante Exum alongside Luka and Kyrie and the performance he had following that.
Yeah, I've actually always liked the idea of having Dante Exum with his size play alongside Luka and Kyrie. And throughout this whole time he's been with the Mavs, they've really emphasized the importance he plays in keeping the pace high and being able to get them into their half court actions. And when you have another guard that can do that without sacrificing size, you're able to get into some off ball stuff with Kyrie and Luka involved. Like you have like the zoom action where one of them screens for the other off ball, and then they go into a handoff, and that's just a completely different attack to have to account for, because it's just a nightmare to like kind of in the moment of the game be like, okay, who do I switch off of? Who am I willing to switch off of? Okay, well, we don't want him to switch on to onto that superstar. That guy can't handle that. And then, all of a sudden Derek Lively's getting open looks in the paint and things like that, or it's just flowing into another nice action, and that just allows a lot of flow, movement, and it reduces the burden that you place on someone like Luka, who has to usually initiate a lot of things throughout the flow of a game. And he always will, regardless. But that's just a great way to pick spots and be able to give the defense different looks and make them really, second guess their personnel combinations in a way that not really many teams in the NBA are able to do, because you don't really have like a 6'7" guard that can post up and like really like attack normal guards. And then Kyrie Irving is, Kyrie Irving, one of the most skilled players you're going to find. So that's just a lot of luxury to have. It kind of reminds me of when the Mavs during their conference finals run had the option of playing Spencer Dinwiddie, Jalen Brunson, and Luka together. Like that's obviously not the same because there's style differences between those other two players in those combinations. But just having that bigger guard allows you more options. But one thing I will say is, while Dinwiddie's a more talented scorer than Exum in that comparison, you get more of a natural like defensive presence from Exum than you would from Dinwiddie, which, when you're playing alongside Luka, that's probably what you would prefer over the scoring punch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's an intriguing thing to think about kind of going forward for sure.
And I mean, to Luka's credit, I mean, he's never going to be an all NBA defender by any means, but I mean, to his credit, he's been more sound on the defensive end this season. So it's been good to see that development from him. It also helps, like you said, to put a guy like Exum with some size and some good defensive instincts in the lineup with him. But I do want to ask you about this too, because I went on another post-game show after this one ended. It's the We Talk Mavs guys with Rail and King. I know you've been on there with them as well before too, but we were kind of talking about how this game unfolded and how the Mavs are 7-0 now all time when Luka has a 40-point triple double. And one of the questions brought up to me during that post game thing was, well, should the Mavs continue to play a style where Luka just kind of goes out there and gets the 40-point triple double, or should they try and pass it around more and keep the pace real high? And my answer to that, just right off the top of my head, was, I mean, they could have both if they wanted it to, because obviously, even with the 40-point triple-double, the rest of the team scored 107 points tonight. The ball wasn't really sticking. I think they can have it both ways. I think Luka can go out there and dominate the way we're used to seeing, and the rest of the guys can get theirs too, and things can be fun and flowing, and and obviously it helps, like you said, to have a co-star that's a future Hall of Famer in Kyrie. But I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I honestly think that they can have their cake and eat it too, as far as Luka going out and having these massive performances, and it doesn't have to be real ISO heavy.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too starts with the approach of the defense as well. A lot of the times it gets simplified to like, if they're not going to double, then he's going to really pick apart individually. And also, if they are going to double as a frequent approach, he's just going to accept the double team and let his teammates play 4-on-3. That kind of seems to be where it stems from. But I think overall, like, there's some ways, whether he's getting doubled or they're switching a lot, regardless of the approach, that you can kind of utilize him within the flow, like kind of what we were just discussing, to kind of maximize, I guess, his durability or stamina throughout a game and also throughout a season. Because I think the game within the game is important, but you also have to think about I guess you could say, the war, not the battle, when you're competing for that long-term goal. So you really don't want to have that situation where it's March 8th or whatever in New Orleans, and he's talking about having a phantom quad injury or something that he's been dealing with for a couple of weeks. So I think that's like the main priority for sure. Because honestly, like especially as players get older, not him in particular, but just like past their 30s, you really start to see them picking their spots. Like even like Kyrie Irving, you could see he's sometimes he could be a little too passive for observers, like who are like, why isn't Kyrie like really trying to tear apart the defense? Why is he standing in the corner? But a lot of that has to do with like the big picture goals of peaking at the right time and things like that. So I think that definitely has a lot to kind of do with the approach. But I think from like an individual game standpoint, I definitely think if they're not double teaming, that's definitely a wise approach to really run things and then force their hand. But overall, I think it definitely you definitely want to have the big picture in mind as opposed to the stats for sure, or the single game approach for sure.
Well, as a guy who turned 30 this year, back in April, I surely know the importance of pacing yourself because, I tweeted it out the other day. I slept wrong on my shoulder one night. I think it was last week, and it was just like I got shot. Just for just for the next few days, I just felt terrible, and I was just like, man, you turn 30 and the flip will switch. So I understand Kyrie if he has to take a game or two, because of his foot being sore or something. I get it, Kyrie. I get it. Well, Grant, look, I appreciate you joining me for this one. Great work as always. Guys, y'all go over to DallasBasketball.com. I've got stuff up. Grant's got stuff up. Michael Mulford, Isaac Bourne, all of us, we've got stuff up over there, and there's more coming throughout the night and into the morning hours tomorrow. And, we'll have several things as we lead into that next game against the Portland Trailblazers that'll happen on Friday. But, guys, we appreciate it. Y'all go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to go over to Grant's YouTube channel, too. It's just at Grant Afseth. Give him a click over there. And we appreciate it. We'll see y'all probably sometime Saturday. I don't know. I might be back on here with my guy, Drew Johnson. If not, I'll see if Grant can join me, or I might just solo it. You never know. But either way, we'll be back Saturday one way or the other. Appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great night.